Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are closing the day with a topic that's at the heart of modern energy trading: interoperability, modularity, seamless integration, as we like to call it, finding a way through the jungle of complex trading systems. Now we have a field of experts here. They're all experts in their respective fields, and it all has to do with interoperability. We're going to talk about how to break silos without breaking operations and what way forward there is in this industry. I'd like to do a quick introduction of our panelists. We have Andrea Remin-Stone from Zima Global. CEO, I need to say, CEO at Zima Global. Then we have Simeon Volchev, account manager at Lead Consult. Raj Arandanasan, he is Managing Director UK at eStar. On my left here, we have Francisco Marin, Head of Pre-Sales at CubeLogic. And Asbjørn Hansen, CEO at Previse Systems. And Rob Palmer, Business Development Manager at Equius. Right. At the end of the panel discussion, the floor is yours. We value your contributions, whether you're in tech, trading, or transformation. But let's first start with defining interoperability in our sector. Well, we all know what it means from a technical perspective. Systems need to talk to each other. But does it go beyond that, in your opinion? Does it have to do with managerial mindset? Does it have to do with vendor cooperation? What is interoperability for you? Who would like to start? Raj?
Yeah, sure. So I think interoperability is really about removing friction between vendors, and it's about having sort of a seamless integration and being client-centric and delivering actually a unified service. You sort of touched on whether it's about mindset or on the technical side. The technology makes the interoperability possible, but the mindset is what actually executes that and drives it and sees it through. So I think, you can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have the mindset's not there, like you just said, information silos happen, and people can't integrate and learn from each other and deliver a unified service. So I think it's important.
Rob?
Hi. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think technology will be the deliverer of that, but the incentive, of course, will come from the mindset, and the mindset will come from the customers. On my way over here, I was thinking about, well, from interoperability, why? What's up for grabs? What's actually going to become available to people as a result of it? And I think there's some gains, and there's also some situations that can be avoided. So if there is greater speed of systems being able to talk to one another, that of course generates more real-time information, better trading decisions. But on a sort of real-time day-to-day basis, for example, in my world, that can mean a faster match confirmation, which doesn't necessarily sound that exciting in isolation. But actually what that means is that you now have more confidence in building what your position is on that contract throughout the curve, right? That can feed into your counterparty credit in the OTC markets. And this comes to my next point about what interoperation can help us avoid. And that's, for example, trades that shouldn't happen. Again, I'm talking about OTC market trades here, where counterparty credit is the determining factor as to whether they can be achieved or not. And often the reliance on a confirmation or two systems to be able to talk to each other to let them know that the trade has gone through can mean that a trade that shouldn't have happened, to use the term, that needs to be busted, this never ever happens within a few seconds, where the price level is still consistent with the trade that was done. This always happens. I spent many years working in OTC credit, and hours, if not maybe a day later, where the price has moved and one side will suffer from that. So I think it's the tech definitely is the deliverer, but I think the mindset has to come, and that will come from when people see what can be achieved.
I totally agree with my colleagues for sure. I just want to add something else far beyond that. I don't see that as we are discussing, right? It's not just a technical part of it. It is more something that is becoming a strategic pillar within our organizations, right? So that's really important. So now they try to think in a way that make all the things working together, right? Now taking into account the increase of complexity of our industry, right? As well, it's very important that we are capable of working together, have a one vision, right? So one team, one dream, and we can deliver and unleash the most value proposition possible to our customers, right? So I think that's very important. And also we need as well an alignment, not just vendors, integrators, but also of course customers, right? We all have to be on the same team and working together to try to make things better.
I think also it's about the solution for the customer, right? I was talking to somebody earlier in the room today who told me that he was CIO at a trading company recently, and they had 400 applications in this company, right? So of course, what you call an application depends whether it's algo, whatever the definition question here, right? But if you have 400 applications running around, you really need to ensure that these different vendors and yourself and whatever you're building this stuff is working in the same way and working closely together for this complex landscape to work. If it doesn't do that, then it all falls apart, right? So I think that mindset thing is actually the most important thing to me. Technology is getting there. We're getting easier and easier access to data, right? But it's the mindset between vendors and developers that ensures that whenever I do something, I need to publish it as an event. I need to ensure people can consume it. What people then do with it in other solutions is fine, but I need to make it available to them so they can stream the data. I think that's also what PwC was talking about earlier today, right?
So I love the comments that the panel has suggested. What I find really interesting is when there is a break, the backwards logic of trying to figure out where the source of the break occurs. And this is where having common data formats help, having great partnerships between the people, between both customers and vendors is essential. You know, interoperability, it's faster and easier when everyone's cloud native with APIs. That's great. You know, it's just simply more transparent. But the reality is there is quite a bit of variability in the operational processes of every customer that we have. So as much documentation as you have in various run books, having the partnership with other providers, other vendors in the ecosystem is really important to facilitating our customers whose pace of trading is accelerating. We've had such great conversation in this conference about the pace of trading accelerating, certainly from end of day to intraday down to 15-minute and below increments. When you have to make decisions that quickly, there is a human element. There is a human element where you need to pick up the phone, you need to figure out what's broken, how do I fix it, and how do I get ourselves back on track so that we have a functioning system where you can make good decisions.
I just want to complement to what you say and inspire me additionally, because I was thinking about that, is actually, I fully agree. It is both. It is 50% technology and 50% mindset, if you can say a balance. But I mean, on the technology side, we see more modern advanced technologies are rising. Companies are interested in actually getting there and use what we say best of breed, right? You don't want to be stuck with one in-all solution. You probably want to take the best out of there and be able to navigate fast, scale faster, get what suits you now, not buy something that is, I don't know, in 10 years you need it, you don't need it now, but you pay it now. And then in 10 years when you arrive there, I don't like anymore this. So I have a different focus. So you want to keep that flexibility that in fast moving markets that you can play. So you're targeting top-notch technologies, but then the mindset, I agree, you have to, between the vendors, with the customers, because if you're not aligned with the customer, if you don't engage the customer, you're actually probably setting the project to a fail. But what I like also is that we had a couple of projects where also Alex addressed it today. Formally, someone could say on paper, competitors are working together because the client valued the most when competitors are actually competing on value, not on territory. And then allowing such kind of mentality and such kind of mindset, I think it's very interesting, creates a different environment, and I think all benefit, all. not only the customer, but also we as vendors, we as mediators, we also benefit a lot from that. So yeah, 50-50, with both having a really important role, in my opinion.
Now, it's great that you all agree that the mindset is important and that it is there, but we all know that's not enough, basically, because there are obviously obstacles. We talked today a lot about more conservative mindset in terms of new technology, implementing that. It's basically pure strategy. You don't make any money with that, except in the mid to long run. Whereas, I don't know, you spend money on marketing, also that's not your core business, but you're going to get new leads, a new business. With strategy, well, I buy a new computer and nobody knows, but I need a new one. I just spend money and it's a nuisance. So basically, we know now what the key driving forces are for people to adopt more interoperability, but how do you actually convince them? Like, do you make it clear, almost like a threat? If you don't do it, you're going to be slower and less successful. If you do it, you're going to be more successful. How do you actually manage to?
Yeah, again, I think that's a very good question, though. I would say that one of the most important things is trust, right? So we are capable of showing and be confident that to both our partners, integrators, customers. So it's a trust relationship, right? So we just need to make sure, and of course, trying to deliver in that direction, right? So one of what I think is most important is just giving this confidence, right, to everybody and to the team that we are working all together and we are capable of delivering together and unleashing value for customers.
You go first, Oliver.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I would say from the front end trading perspective, maybe the lengths of the projects are a lot shorter. So I would actually say from our side, interoperability is something that people require, because I would say now the market's moved away from just sort of a one company doing everything sort of system. We see with all of our clients, they use multiple platforms to trade. So we need to see, how do we become interoperable within that? So for example, we connect directly to the exchange order books. So if someone were to place a trade on eStar, but then they use another platform, they can still recognize that as their own trade. So what we've done is sort of modularized those elements so they can just be spun up as quickly as possible and scaled. And then we can spend our time talking to the clients about, okay, how do we make your workflows bespoke? What are you actually what value add are you looking to get out of the system? So I would say, if anything, it's being pushed from the client side for what we work in.
That's exactly where my mind was going, because at Zima, we often see the impetus for change coming top down, where a chief risk officer or chief technology officer knows they need to digitalize, and they go down into the business and they say, okay, figure this out. Right. And then at that point, I like something that Federico said, interestingly, about the notion of maturity models and sort of looking at the organizational maturity and how fast are we trying to adapt to what pace of trading or infrastructure or data management. And sometimes when you experiment with new technologies that are sort of beyond your maturity model, there are unintended side effects. So one of my favorite unintended side effects is, everyone thinks it's a good idea to put data in a data lake, right? Makes a lot of sense. The problem that a lot of our customers have seen is that they don't have great governance. So they call it a mushrooming effect, where because data is so accessible in a data lake, all different business users and various different departments are going in and pulling out curve data and putting it into a risk system, a treasury system, a trading system, an operational system. And then all of a sudden, no one has a consistent view. Are we actually using the right data at the right time? So this is where vendors can be very helpful in sort of taking a look at the organization and saying, well, we have a view across many different customers that might be at different points in their maturity model. And we can recommend, by working together, ways that we can have our applications talk to each other to give you a controllable outcome that's helping you satisfy that top-down demand from your chief risk officer to put more controls around systems that need to be digitalized.
Yeah, exactly. I think also it's driven by that, right? I think years ago I was working with a customer, some of them actually are in the room, but we showed up on site. They had 6 different forward curve departments, right? 6 departments doing forward curves and putting them around the organization, right? So you're trying to put in a risk
Right.
model or a mark-to-market. Nobody can figure out which curve should we use, right? And you have the customers arguing with each other about it, right? So you're completely right about that. But that's an organizational problem more than a system problem, right?
Exactly.
Right? It's more about figuring out who owns this data and where does it go, right? So that's one sort of problem. And back to your original question, right? In terms of how, are we trying to threaten people or not? We're not, right? Not at all, because people are coming on their own. As the trading volume grows and your demand for what you're doing grows and grows and grows, you recognize that your existing processes and systems cannot cope anymore. So you have to make a change. Otherwise, you will not be able to make money. You cannot stay in the game.
Yeah, another point I'd like to make actually around this is I don't think it actually, like you're saying, it doesn't necessarily need to be sold as a vision, right? But again, just explain the benefits that come from it. An example I'll give is about 2012 when Trayport finally opened up the API to ICE prices. Okay, look at what that did for the TTF market. It practically exploded overnight. Now, I know a lot of the brokers weren't exactly over the moon, but look at what it did for the liquidity of that contract. So I think you have to sort of almost create the vision and explain to people the possibilities that can have. We had two vendors, Web Ice and Trayport, really butting heads. Absolutely no chance they were ever going to cooperate, but they did. And then look what happened. So I think you have to reiterate these points and just explain the benefits to people.
Coming to your initial question, how you actually convince people, how you persuade them, and obviously forcing anything, it's not going to lead you much. And what we do usually is we try to communicate clear, transparent, with enough patience, trying to understand, trying to shorten the distance, because customer sometimes comes, they have something, but they cannot explain what they have. They want something, they cannot explain what they want. Then on the other side, you have something to propose, but they don't know it yet. And then as you said, I mean, sometimes the decision on a C-level and then operational guys, they are fed up with projects, they're fed up with problems, they're fed up with challenges. And then someone is bringing them another guru to help them structure their business. And then you in an awkward situation where, okay, scope something, and then you're in a room with people who ideally have the same goal, but you don't know it yet. And then somehow you're against each other, maybe if you don't communicate properly. So you have to communicate, you have to be patient, you have to try to do it on small steps. I like this, I try to do it in Spanish, but I'm not sure if I can say it. Small steps or short steps, long vision. So paso corto, vista larga.
Muy bien, muy
Yes.
bien.
So, to appreciate where we stand today. So I like this approach, because this means that, and I like this also because with many projects that we do together with Previse, for example, the first phase usually is a small, low-hanging fruit. And that's something which is to open the people, right? To get support from the inside, from the team. They get on board and they become your champions. They become your facilitators. They start supporting you. And then when they're engaged, the difference, I have a little experience in lead, 3 years almost, but I see clearly the difference between projects who succeed and projects who fail or they have struggling. And this is the main difference is how engaged is actually the customer. So there is nothing to force, there is nothing to convince, surely not to threaten, but you have to be also able to sometimes say no, right? To challenge the ideas, to be able to say, okay, I see what you're heading to, I see what are your ideas, those are our suggestions, and then to remind that you can start from, we spoke with friends of ours, for customers that we did implementation, and they say, it is amazing how we are coming from the same problem or situation, we are aiming almost the same markets and goals, but somehow we achieve it through different channels. So there might be many paths to the same thing, starting from the same point, and all of them are good as far as you somehow communicate and then collaborate, and everyone are fine with that and they're happy with the result at the end.
If I may just pick up on that, you talked about, talking to the team in the customers team. Which departments, I mean, to everyone, which departments do you think should be involved in this? I mean, apart from the technical team, obviously, management, but there's account managers, there's strategists, maybe data officers. Like, who do you think should be involved so everything runs smoothly? Raj?
Yeah, so I would say again on the front end trading side, usually there's the traders and the business people, they're setting the priorities. And then I would say traditionally, like maybe when I first got into trading technologies, there'd then be some IT infrastructure guys with them, sort of helping them facilitate that. But now I've seen it really evolve actually, where there's, data side, quantitative analysts, because the projects, I think one of the things that's changed in the market, the projects are huge. And, they're these singular integrated projects that touch every part of a business now. So I think you do need essentially to have all parts of the value chain involved, because especially on like the data side, it touches everybody. And so I think you have to have all of them, but most importantly, you need a motivated project manager on their side to bring it all together. Because I think in terms of implementations, big or small, a lot of the delays, I'm not blaming the clients, but a lot of the delays do also come from their side as well, and coordinating, then thinking, have we got our priorities clear? So I think part of the challenge of being a vendor is getting in there and managing that relationship and making sure, right, are these things clear? Is the road clear for us to progress?
Yeah, it's all about how the customer is structured, right? I think it's every department, but it has to be founded in the business. You cannot have it like the old school, especially utilities, have this setup where you have a huge IT department far away from the business, trying to make change and drive change from the IT side. That's always a nightmare. That always takes forever. It's slow. It's really, it's not where the market is going. And what you see all the younger trading companies, right, where literally you have IT people in each department, right? You have your front office developers, you have your middle office developers, you have your back office developers. They're out with the business side. And then you get this drive and this ownership that actually makes change happen way faster, right? Because the other way around, technology comes from IT, and here's a new system for you. Nobody will have that. They'll fight it to the end, right? So, yeah.
I have to comment on that because we're often brought in by the risk police, right? So the chief risk officer often will bring in Zeman to say, no more calculating curves in Excel spreadsheets. We don't want those models sitting in Python notebooks, right? We need to be able to run our curves systematically. I need a house view. How in the world can we possibly operate across sometimes 50, 60 locations in multiple time zones? How do I know that I'm getting the right data to make the right decision to increasingly report to regulators on a more and more frequent basis? So, we come marching in and, especially if you're brought in by the cops, the first thing we have to do is we have to partner with the business and sort of say to the business, we're not here to tell you how to do your job. We're here to help you embed your workflows, embed your know-how into our software systems, right? We give you a starting point. We want to give the customers, we want to get that, what we call it, from the journey from question to decision. We want to shorten that as quickly as possible, right? To get that time to insight to be much more systematic and faster. Because when you have so much IP locked up in the business, there's still so much that goes on in Excel. It's frightening, right? You really want to get out of that and get into software and systems that talk to each other, which is the whole point of this discussion around interoperability. You've got to partner with the business users who are resistant to change. They like the way that they work. It's worked for them for a very long time, and they don't want to go through the work of having to prove it to someone else. So partnering with the business, having teams that can also say, I'm here to help you embrace your workflow, not to tell you what to do. But also, I think, to Raj's point, you have to really help understand the maturity of the organization. We're seeing more and more what I call data fluent, data natives sitting next to the trader, sitting next to the risk manager. But that's not always the case, right? So if you recognize that a customer doesn't have that degree of data fluency, it is the responsibility of the vendor to suggest, I know you've always done this the way that you have. Yes, you used to have 5 UAT environments. Okay. But in a modern cloud-based world, there's a more effective way to do this. Let me teach you why. You have to take the time to recognize the maturity of your partner and have those conversations and use your collective experience across customers to get the business where they want to go.
Well, I totally agree with the concept of course, we have to get the business involved, right? They are, let's say, at the end, they're going to be the key stakeholders and the users, and they're going to get the value, right? So we need to be center of or have a clear focus and a clear engagement with them, right? That's no discussion on that from my point of view. Now we also have to take into account that because of interoperability, right, we have to be able to pretty much engage everybody, right? It is no, I know it sounds a bit vague, but it is actually true, unfortunately. Well, fortunately. So we need to make sure that everybody's engaged from the very first, from the trader to the back office, to the accounting, everybody has to be on the same ship, right? So I guess the key takeaway here is that, from my point of view, is that business, because we have the vision of bringing value to business and helping them and making them their life easier so they can make more money out of that and of the business. But at the end, we need to be all engaged, right? Somehow.
I mean, if you engage as a customer, if you engage on a transformation journey, obviously, because of the complexity, because you are going to touch a lot of processes and procedures, everyone will be affected, right? Front office, back office, even finance, maybe. So definitely everyone is going to be involved. Everyone will have an opinion. Probably front office will be the demanding side. They will say what is real time. We see the speed is getting faster, the data becoming bigger. Back office will probably be challenging what is realistic, because they are going to do someone said where the things happen. So they are going to be the lackmus if everything can actually make sense at the end. Then you have risk also defining compliance. So everyone will have an opinion, but practically, from the experience that I have also with several projects we do in partnership with different vendors, we see that usually you need one person who is business aware what actually you are going to do. He might not know all the things, but he knows to whom to ask, so he can engage people on the different topics. We need ideally the same person be empathic enough to go and hook people who are intentionally or unintentionally somehow block the process, right? So, okay, explaining them. It is
going to be
good.
fine.
It's going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
To comfort them, and then eventually you need few people of actually helping you, right? With building the test cases, the scenarios, helping you actually walk through this process of identifying what is the best for them, and you are able to consult them on the best practices. So I think everyone will be involved, but practically at the end you need maybe few people to move faster, but those people should be the right people. So few people, but the right people for the things for the magic to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, I do agree to that. The way I sort of pictured this in my mind is take a trade. Think, a trader lifts an offer on a screen. Who does that trade touch all the way through? They need to either be, not necessarily responsible or accountable, but minimum informed. Their voices need to be heard. And I think where you do meet any attrition to a project, that can break that down, because people begin to understand why it's being done. So my own view would be to just picture a trade on any contract and just take it all the way through its life cycle, every department it touches, what they may need to input and to hear them out on it.
Raj?
I think also from as projects go, I think your own relationship with the client evolves, because I think, when everybody writes their blurbs on their websites, you just write, right, we partner with, and then you have your clients, but you actually have to sort of earn that status. There's a point of sale, but it's the value add you give in those early months, the first year. What have you solved? What have you got ahead of? What trust have you given them to take something off their plate? And I think once you do more of that, I think the relationship does become easier, because I think they would give you more advice going your way, but they take on what you're saying with more weight.
That's actually a good point. Again, correlate with what I say, small steps, right? Allow the process to happen, the people to see the progress, and then you onboard more enthusiasts actually to support your project, your vision, your goals.
Right, so again, everyone's agreeing on this side, but let's now get to the technical bit. So how do you actually integrate, older legacy environments with newer cloud-based systems? Do you do it one by one? We heard about earlier today, you shouldn't do big bang, like, everything at once. But if you do just one by one, how do you go about that?
Well, that's a very good point, right? About interoperability. So basically, nowadays, what we try to do, at least from QPlogic perspective, right? Because we are partnering with most of the people in here, right? So we have to we have pre-built interfaces, APIs with all these guys. We basically just to break these walls, right? Between. So that's typically how we manage that part of the business. As well, when we are with customers that actually they may have some dated infrastructure as well. So we are moving more into event-driven technology, right? So basically we can orchestrate and stream all the information and the data orchestration from systems, right? Even though they are in the cloud, they are in hub. That's something that can be managed through these new technologies, right? And I think I would say that's typically how we integrate. Of course, as well, it's very important in terms of how we integrate is as well having good partnerships. So basically share the knowledge, share the technology. So you have open and exposed functions and stacks. So you can actually send that to your partner and say, okay, this is my technology. These are my functions. You can call them and you can use them. I can receive your data. I can manage and I can enhance that. So that's typically how we like working, right? Because we know we don't want to be let's say the center of the stack, right? We want to collaborate with everybody.
So Zima typically integrates with anywhere from 8 to 15 downstream systems, right? We love it when we're working with a partner that has a standard API. We build a standard connection and it works. Love that, right? So when it comes to change management, we will typically work with our customers to go through a series of use cases. And we love to start with the low-hanging fruit where we have existing connections and we can integrate and we can move very, very quickly and it's smooth and seamless. But the reality is we inevitably stumble upon proprietary technology that was built 5 to 10 years ago. Sometimes the customers understand it. A lot of times they don't. We have to figure out and almost reverse engineer and build adapters to sort of help deliver data into these organizations, into these applications. But what's also interesting about where we sit in the ecosystem is that we're really a 360 round trip partner, right? Because we're ingesting a lot of client-specific data, which comes from very proprietary systems, which is formatted in weird ways, and it's never consistent. So, having a project sponsor, like we've talked about, great communication where you're constantly reminding people, why are we doing what we're doing? Keeping decision logs of why have we made which decisions in what sequence. Those are all parts of good change management. But wherever we can, we try to work with partners where we have the existing relationship using more modern technologies and then tackle off the higher, more complex, proprietary, old technologies, which we find everywhere, frankly. We tackle those based on how our customers prioritize what the best outcome would be. We love to partner with firms that are helping on their digital transformation so we can even bypass and leapfrog some of these old incumbent technologies. And that's where having relationships with firms like Lead Consult and others that can kind of advise and say, rather than keeping this 44-year-old IT2 database, there's a better way that this can be done. So I think there's a very natural partnership in terms of prioritizing what is the business outcome and how can you really skip some of these downstream integrations that are overly complex. Having that partner that can bring in the best practices really helps accelerate how you deliver value to the customer. It really does.
Yeah, then you do it in steps, right? You start with something, one thing at a time, right? I think Simeon talked about it earlier, right? We typically start with the short-term trading because that's where the most modern technology is applied, right? So it's the easiest part from a technical standpoint to connect, right? It's small, simple objects. There's lots of them, and you have very little complexity into it. A lot of the legacy stuff you encounter, at least for us, it's typically on the more old school projects or old school instruments that people have been trading for 20 years. Right? So somewhere around that food chain, there's something really old CSV files, something's coming in, that's what we normally encounter at least.
We always will start in the short-term end of the curve, particularly working with the ETRM partners. And the very next partner we start to work with is usually the treasury departments, because the treasury departments get really annoyed that they don't have consistency with the trading systems. And then when you start to get into treasury, you start to see some really old ERP software, right? And then you start to go into other operational departments, which are looking at scheduling and other applications. And then you start to encounter there, more of the proprietary technology that was built 5-10 years ago around specific nuances per asset class. And then what's interesting now about renewables and some of the newer technologies that are coming out, we're still ingesting a lot of data that is coming off of PDFs from brokers. Like, not all the data is structured. And I'm sure you're all seeing that as well. So like, sometimes you don't know you're going to encounter it until you get into that use case. And then you have to tackle some of these manual workarounds that people have just taken for granted for years. And that's when having a great partner to say, I got that, I've seen that before, I have that solution, that's when it's really helpful.
Do you get handwritten data as well?
We get a lot of stuff we have to scan off a PDF. Let me tell you, that still hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually once got a whole box of confirmations in Russian. That was the trade data. There you go. You can
Like,
migrate.
there you go.
Exactly. Literally, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say that we try to recognize, right, that you cannot do a big bang. You cannot really say that's an old world and you should not use it anymore, because there are legitimate reason why people, front office, back office, people who are doing this on daily basis, they still want to be in Excel. They still want to be using their old tools for many reasons. It could be sensitive know-how. It could be confidence that they can still do it in case something, and because it's still in their hands, the control, right? So you work on that, but then what we try to do is try to offer a hybrid model, right? So you offload on phases. You try to propose solution that is working with the new world, giving you the best of it. When you are ready to accept it, you work on that, of course, to make it more and more appealing to you. But then you also offer powerful, through powerful middlewares. You're offering possibility, because there are tools that are transferring now written text to databases. You have middlewares that are able to work with various agnostic to files. So you can use those tools to facilitate and help you actually meet in the middle, right? Start walking together. And then with that, you have a hybrid transition, which is allowing you to take as much as needed, and then maybe stay like that. You find the equilibrium, you find the place where actually both worlds could exist until people are ready to brace the next step.
You need to be a therapist. You have to be a therapist. I'm thinking about a particular client who, a very large, multi-billion-dollar utility company that was growing very rapidly by buying other businesses, right? And they called us because their data management had been organized by a wonderful woman who was entering into retirement. And they said, well, she's doing such a great job, and we've done all these acquisitions. We want to extend what she's doing. But we sat down with her, and we basically realized we had to automate all of the workflows of this incredibly competent woman who would know every third Sunday. She had to calibrate for this market, and because of the calendar and holiday schedule in Malaysia around palm oil, she had to like the specificity of the steps that she had in her personal workflow around the data. It was an encyclopedic knowledge, and we had to partner her with a team to help automate and build technology and build those processes into something that was systematic, right? And that happens all over the place inside large energy, utility, mining companies, because there's a lot of people that drive a lot of value, and we want to make their jobs easier while having them embrace change of using technology. And there are so many good tools today that can just take that know-how and really embed it into workflows that are much more scalable and resilient. I mean, that's really what it gets down to.
Yeah, just from our side, on the Equus side, we're fortunate that so basically my point is around sort of standardized data wherever possible. And we're actually fortunate that we have typically worked with two industry generated standards, which is the ASA XML documentation and CPML. But even then, would you believe that's not been enough? We had to create an API, JSON format API, because we still had people sending over things in so many different formats. Sometimes people sending reports on behalf of other people, which was never or rarely correct in the first instance. So we actually had to go one step further, even though we were in a very fortunate position to have inherited these two industry-generated formats. So harmonization and standardized data, I think, is at the heart of all of this.
I just was thinking about something that you, Andreas, said, is that I'm coming from before joining Lead, I was in a normal energy company. So I think we tend to forget, right? We tend to forget. I was basically a customer, right? And we tend to forget now that for us this is a daily business, right? These things they seems normal, they seems clear, but people, when they do their business, they're overwhelmed and they just want to do their business, right? They don't need extra services if those services will need additional efforts. So what we need to do, and I like your analogy with it being a therapist, but not in a negative way, right? You need to make sure that you understand, right? That they have challenges, they want their business to improve, and they will support anything that will do that, but you have to make more steps toward them. You make sure that actually you propose them flexibility. You are with them when they have some. So you challenge them, but still somehow you provide them choices to an extent that, again, what I call hybrid transition. So yeah, that's something which I like the analogy, but in a positive way. I would say that it is not like for us harming, but it's something that you actually have to do. It's a must do, in my opinion.
Now, with all these obstacles and problems and hindrances with implementing all of this to achieve interoperability, do you have a bit of internal guidelines, a template, a blueprint, or a good practice where you say, I know every case is different, but so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time? Like, have you set anything up in your companies?
I think it's about standard connectors, right? And when people work together a lot, you end up with these standard connectors, right? I think at least for us, right, we have a few partners also in this room, right, where we see the same thing over and over again. It's always the same 3 companies that people select. 1, 2, 3, off we go. We know each other. We can get it up running very quickly. It's a standard way of working, and quite often the customer doesn't even realize that this happens, right? And that's actually the best part. It's like you buy this. We know each other. We'll deal with it. Just don't worry about it. You'll wake up in the morning and it'll be working, right?
It's a bit like parents organizing
it's about
shelter and food
correct,
for the kids, and the kids don't realize they're working together.
But you realize that they're working together fine, but you're taking it away, right?
Yeah.
Then you're providing a solution to the customer, right? The customer needs a working solution. And the worst thing you can have is 2 vendors pointing at each other. Yeah. So it's not my problem, it's your problem. He did it, right? That's horrible. That's the worst situation, right? So you have to have this sort of framework of say, hey, if you know these people in this ecosystem, they all know each other, they all work together. And I know if I pick these guys, they'll all be fine. They'll work together and solve the problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd completely agree. That's exactly it. And more to the point, with the ecosystem, when you're engaging with the partners in the ecosystem outside of just a particular project, that's actually the continuous innovation that you're doing. And then you're actually presenting an even more streamlined position to the client, rather than, sometimes when you're just working together on an ad hoc project, you're sort of putting something together, but it's less seamless. So I think it is that continuing innovation that you're, working between your vendors and your peers.
Okay, I'll try to say it. I mean, there are 3 things I would say, just to have to name them, but probably there are more. So the first thing I would say is that you try to, whatever you build, you try to build in a way it's reusable. Let's call it templates, right? So because as Ashbjørn say, we see over and over again the same challenges, right? The same way you handle the trace, the same way you need to do the interfaces. So you can economy of scale, right? So you can try to save customers' efforts and cost at the end by trying to do the things a little bit more smarter, a little bit more out of the box ready, which of course is also giving a side advantage of time to market. It's much more faster to reach a market. We had a nice example of a customer to whom we integrated to a new market and a new trading platform, Odyssey trading platform. They were ready on our side, configured for 2 weeks, and they need 4 to be registered as a balancing responsible group. So this is something which is showing that reusability and scalability is something that, and this economy of scale can be something actually positive. The second thing I would say is very important is engage the stakeholders as soon as possible into the process. Because if you work in vacuum, then you might end up in a situation that you develop something nice, but it's just off of what actually is needed. And then the third thing is this ecosystem thinking that I will repeat it again. So you don't challenge on and you don't compete on territory. Oh, this is mine. I want to do that, and my tool is better than yours. But you compete on value, what we can bring to the project, what we can do for the customer, and how actually this can make what we do much more valuable in total. So it's like instead of trying to be the whole picture, you try to complement the puzzle.
I totally agree with you guys. I just want to highlight a couple of things, right? Basically, in terms of how we can make these things more standard, more repeatable, right? So on. So I guess in terms of good practices, what can we get, right? So what I would say, just three things, right? Basically, from a technology perspective, having open APIs, right? So basically, that's what's happening with most of our partners at QLogic, right? So we be clear and have visibility into that. Also, as well, being capable to make it more repeatable, more efficient, and more quick. Basically, have clear roles, right? So basically, everybody has to understand exactly what it has to do, right? And at the end, I would say as well that we have to have a cooperative delivery and ownership model, right? So I think that's very important in terms to make the things very repeatable, right? So be efficient and basically deliver value quickly. That's how we try to do it. I mean, with most of you guys as partners and at QLogic.
So I've seen a big change in energy companies over the last 5 years, where when they were trying to do change and transformation, they would approach the project saying, I have the answers. I want to build this and I know what it looks like. And now what I see is a lot of customers saying, I want to get active in this market as fast as humanly possible, right? I am not going to be prescriptive about the technology. In fact, fewer scale partners that work together well, that come to me with playbooks and run books, that is the fastest way for me to take advantage of the market opportunity that's right in front of me. In the last 3 years, we have seen so much change, and volatility is our friend, right? Volatility creates trading opportunities. We love volatility, but we need technology to move at the same pace to capitalize on that technology. So when a large customer, these very large oil and gas or utilities, come to us and say, I want to get into this market now, they want to pull together a small, fast tiger team of scalable players that they trust, that they know have run books, that can work well together to get live fast. 60% of the time to get live in a new market is figuring out the data. Once you figure out the data, then programming the technologies and the workflows and putting in credit risk checks and everything else, if you have the right partners, you can get up to speed very, very quickly. But it's really about having that forward planning and working with fewer scale partners that collaborate well to drive change quickly.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, just to continue slightly familiar with what I was just saying earlier. I mean, for us, one of the best things we did was create an API. I mean, it was sort of, there was almost talk at Equius, that we were at the very forefront, the frontier. The way some people were talking about it was like, well, hang on, these things have been around for absolutely ages. It was just very new to us, because previously people had to submit ASOXML, CPML via this messenger connection. It was clunky, it was slow, it was just not ideal. People didn't want to have it installed in their local landscape. It was expensive. There was a whole host of reasons. So just to echo really you can't say enough, in my view, the importance of open APIs. That's really changed everything. And even then, depending on the organizations, but we partner with Lead and a couple of others, honestly, when people partner up with someone, it happens so much faster. When they go it alone, there's a very, very big UK gas company, and it took them almost 2 years, and God knows what it cost them. Whereas if they partnered with someone like Lead, they would have been there in no time at all. But we learn every time we have a customer on board to the API. We understand a little bit more about what their concerns are, and that enables us to sort of tweak, and get better at onboarding them.
Yeah, that's exactly the same with us, with having an open API, so people can program their algo strategies, feed them into our models quickly. And actually, going back to your point, Andrea, in terms of, you just get clients now who'll turn up and say, listen, we need access to this market last week. and when can you do it? But I've actually even spotted a trend with a lot of the exchanges in the markets now. You can see a lot of them are replicating actually their backends and their connectivity. So even at the exchange level, you're seeing a bit more standardization where we can then makes our life a bit easier. So then we can spin up our environments, then connect into them in a lot quicker fashion.
Right. So now looking ahead about where the industry is going, what do you think trading organizations should prioritize in the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 years to remain agile and integrated?
So I think as the spine, I think the data is actually a really key. I think we've seen from all the presentations today and yesterday, the amount of information and data has really been a huge factor. And because it touches so many different parts of the business, it's really, if the data architecture is right and the data quality is right, it solves so many other problems in other areas. So I think that's a really big piece. And then I think the flexibility, so having components, like you said, open APIs, things that you can connect into very easily. And, you know, I was saying earlier that the market's moved into a place where they want multiple vendors and to be able to do that. So I think clients on their own side need to think of, right, how do we have our own infrastructure internally to be able to make it easy for vendors to connect into us? And, you know, we want to be pro-choice. And if they did want to switch vendor, how easy is that for them to do? Or are they then stuck with one and in a sticky situation? So I think those would probably be the three big things.
It's like what was mentioned earlier today with owning the process.
Yeah.
That should still be within the client. So maybe we do kind of as a closing statement from everyone before we open up to the audience.
So, I mean, answering your question, I agree with that. I mean, data we see should be more faster, it is more complex, more data are coming. This doesn't mean that the customer will be willing to wait. So they will be willing the things to happen. And it's very important, in my opinion, also another aspect of the data. We are focusing on speed, we are focusing about high performance, but also the quality is important, right? Because if you try to build a very big, nice, fancy house on a moving sand, so your data quality is not there, and you have not robust data, then obviously at some point you're going to fail. So it's very important sometimes that you stick to the basic, you have the basic working, the data and the quality, and then you slowly build your foundation and then the rest. So this is definitely, I agree with the data quality only just would complement that. And the second thing is, I believe that this ecosystem thinking, ecosystem architecture, where you actually try to profit from the best of breed, trying to choose partners and vendors who are allowing you not only to achieve more, but still preserve your flexibility to move or to in a fast moving scenario, you can shift and you can choose a different direction. So you are not like stuck with one solution for the next 15 years. And the third thing, which Alex mentioned it earlier to the slides, he said invest in strategy. I will just compliment it. I say invest in partnerships. Choose your partners. Try to find those collaborative partners who are actually supporting your vision, and instead of challenging and trying to squeeze you or to somehow make you dependent on them, you actually find those partners who are somehow walking through you the long process. I mean, partners for longer terms. So those are my three important things to look forward if I was a customer willing to prepare for the future.
Thank you.
So as a data provider, I have to agree that data is one of the important things
I
that
thought
we
you were
have
going
for
to say
trading.
that.
So, no big surprise there. But I think there's really three things that I would say. The first one is you're never going to keep up with the variety, complexity, and variability that we are going to face in trading data. Just accept that is the case. Don't try to structure and organize it at the point of ingestion, because you will not keep up. Second thing is, you do want to invest in great data governance and data management, right? Because if you have great data governance and data management, you can make sure that the right data is getting at the right place at the right time. That is critically important. So data governance is incredibly important in how you manage that. The third thing that I think is going to be important for trading infrastructures in the future is something I like to call the data consistency premium. The extent to which drives to interoperability. The extent to which The data you aggregate connects to the data you derive, that connects to your analytic and trading systems, that connects to your risk systems, that connects to your regulatory reporting systems. The more consistent that data is, the better speed you will have and the better capability you will have to extract alpha from your markets at the end of the day. So focusing on consistency, governance, and frankly, dealing with the sheer volume and variety of data that's coming your way, those are the three things that I think you have to be prepared for to have a flexible and responsive trading technology and infrastructure for the future.
Thank you.
I agree with my colleagues. I'm just going to quickly summarize what we think at CubeLogic that is going to be the trends in the next few years, right? From an energy trading IT landscape perspective. So I would say, of course, modular architectures, right? So as we agreed here, it's a matter of getting the best solution for each part of the business, right? And that's where actually all the vendors we fit together, right? Giving the best possible thing. Of course, I see it very important as well, the stream of data, right? It's very important so we can flow and move data across the organization. We also see a big trend as well. So this is more for vendors as well to try to get up to speed into this AI leverage. So basically, we have the possibility of using that technology, right? So we can bring also this value to customers. And that with having this amount of data, AI, and all these sort of things, I would say that also is going to be very, very important, the analytic part, the analytics, right? So basically, we are seeing in the market, for example, now with a big trend in the liquidity risk management risk, right? Because we have that amount of data, a big amount of data, we can actually are going to be able to do much more sophisticated things with it, right? And that's where analytic lands. So basically, just having the possibility of these stochastic models for measuring your potential future exposure, for getting all these complex KPIs, right, and measures, I think is going to be as well something important that with all the data we have nowadays, we're going to be able as well to give to customers.
Yeah. Also, the data quality, data governance, I completely agree with that too, right? That's exactly right. But yeah, give you a good example. So a few weeks ago, I was up with a potential new customer and went down with the CFO. He'd been there for a month, right? And this new company, and he came from another organization previously. And the first thing that happens is he sits down day one and he finds his desk and starts looking into things. Next thing that happens is a guy comes running through the office going, I can't find the trades, right? And turns out, as he's digging into this thing, that the nucleus of what they're doing, even though there are now 40 people, is a big spreadsheet, which is being synced by SharePoint. And everybody's using the spreadsheet. And from there, you're then feeding data to the scheduling system and you're feeding data over here. But essentially, it all ends up in this spreadsheet where sometimes there's a sync error on SharePoint and then pooh, nobody knows where we are, right? And you're sitting there going, what, right? It's sometimes the basics that's missing, right? It's that you need to have that data organized in a way where you can scale from it, right? And you cannot grow that organization any further unless you change those processes, those systems, get data governance in place so that you don't have that problem, right?
Well, sorry to be unoriginal, but I'm also going to say data. And I think if I speak mainly from the OTC market perspective at the moment, because currently where I am, that's our primary focus. We have actually, through regulation, inherited this sort of industry-generated resource of sort of standardized data. It's not there yet, and it needs to improve. But I think we need to turn that to our collective advantage. I think there's a lot of analysis and insights that can be done, certainly around credit management, which has really, really hit OTC markets, with the high prices, people then pulling out of the market, which affected liquidity and, sort of enabled more volatility, time that around, what had been high interest rates for a long period of time. That really, really hurt the OTC market. And as a result of that, we saw a lot of liquidity and price discovery move on to exchanges. But we actually think that this industry-generated resource is born out of the time and effort that everybody as a market went through to be meet their regulatory requirements. Could be, excuse me, turn to everyone's advantage. But to come back to the interoperability topic, that's where greater interoperability needs to continue because as it stands, that data is not quite ready. And finally, I think another driver towards the better data quality is going to be, in our opinion, that you're going to find trade repositories and RRMs. We suspect that regulators are going to put greater emphasis on these guys to be the sort of end central point of truth. So right now, you can actually get away with reporting not very well, if I'm honest with you. But the standards of that needs to improve, and I think the regulators are after that.
All right, thank you very much. Now, we'd like to quickly open it up to the audience. Does anyone have lots of hands up? Could we maybe get the microphone? Yeah, that's fine. We need one here for you to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the panelists. The conversation was... Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much for the panelists. I think the conversation was extremely interesting. One of the things that I don't think we heard enough, and I think is actually a relief over the past 48 hours, was the word AI. How do you see AI in our industry? And in particular, how are we going to think about the physical aspects of the industry that never will change? And can AI actually completely disrupt to the point that we don't need commodity traders any longer?
I'll take that one to start. So first of all, I think AI can be extremely useful in stitching together some of the incongruity that we have between different data types, right? So when you have sensor-based data, right, that's streaming real-time data. And if you want to analyze that against your transactional data or your operational data, it's lumpy. It's not easy to make those analyses. You have to have truly excellent analytics. And this is where AI can come in and fill out and smooth the curves, if you will, to help you get a series of predictions. I liked what you said about having more stochastic analyses as opposed to deterministic analyses. Having the option to use AI to give us a multiple range of potential outcomes, and then looking back over time to see how those outcomes could have played out under different scenarios. We need that too, because more, as we talked about earlier today, more and more factors are influencing our markets, right? Things like weather, things like local market conditions, things like congestion on the grid. All of these various factors, it's just a huge amount of data that no human can really comprehend or write scripts to get at accurate analyses. So having something that learns makes a lot of sense. Now, that being said, we have to have enough transparency that we can understand how the answers are obtained, right? We all have risk committees and boards that want to understand, well, how did you come up with that analysis? So where we're seeing a lot of AI applied right now, and I'm sure Raj is going to talk about this, we can write programs using AI to make the productivity of our developers that much more effective, right? We can apply AI to large data patterns to help us build predictive models. Are we going to use it to make algorithmic trading decisions? I think that's still to come. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that's my view.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a powerful tool. And I think exactly like what you said, the amount of data that you can analyze, that AI can analyze compared to a human is, there's no comparison, but you do need to be able to understand where that data is coming from and how those decisions are made. As I said, I think it's a very powerful tool. And, there could be, I can maybe see a future with augmented tradings. So, they're both being assisted with each other. And maybe, the nature or the role of how a trader operates might be different. But I don't think quite yet where I could see it where it's completely replacing it.
I think I have the feeling that AI technologies are coming just in the right moment when they are going to be needed, right? I mean, we're saying speed is going to increase, standardization going to improve, size of the data will increase. So we will definitely use AI in that direction. I think there are certain things that will disappear because of AI, but what I believe actually is that AI will force us to do the things differently. Right? If I can use a metaphor, I will say you're still listening music, right? Not Walkman anymore, but you're actually iPod or some fancy other new stuff that I'm not on top of it, right? So we'll still do business, we'll just do it in a different way. right? So it's going to facilitate and just change the way we are doing the stuff. And if you adapt, should be not scary. If you try to stay in the, I still have a Walkman at home, so I still preserve my cassettes, but that's more of a sentiment now than actually a practical uses. So a metaphor, but I think, that's my feeling.
I can give you one more analysis. So the LME recently made changes to its data format. And anybody who trades metals had about a 4-day disruption because the LME did not do a very good job of describing the changes that they made in their API. It's funny, we're talking about APIs. I'm sure many of you experience this. You have a great API, well-documented open API is the most important thing. We now have an agentic AI solution, which was developed in 4 months, that you could literally ask the question, where's the problem in the break of data? And we can tell you where it's coming from, right? Because it can look at the data broadly across multiple data sets and look at other providers to see, well, where is the problem really coming from? The way that you would have scrambled to handle that problem in the past is you probably would have called somebody and be like, why is there a null value here? Why do I not have a closing price? Who would then call somebody in the office, who would then call somebody at Zima, who would then call somebody at the CME. Like now you can literally ask an agentic AI solution pretty much any time of day to answer that question, because they're used to the solution can now look at that data and look at the patterns going back over 10, 15 years of history and can look at the API documentation, right? So I think AI is going to dramatically accelerate how we respond when things don't go as planned in the market. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I see it as very, very powerful in trading.
Yeah, I will say briefly. I mean, only to agree, really. But I agree. You know that where a trade break, mismatch, whatever, an uncleared trade, whatever it might be, absolutely. Rather than someone sending an email to a department who calls up, speaks to a trader, in that chain, that could just all disappear. That could happen. I think to the trading side, I'm not so sure. I don't feel in my gut that traders will disappear. I think certain slightly more complex options, and some more complicated forwards, with multiple deliveries, etc. I think that will probably always remain with an individual trader for now. But who knows? But I think sort of standard vanilla futures, for example, just managing a portfolio or a physical asset. Yeah, I could see that happening.
No worries, I will be quick, right? Because we are all thirsty, I guess. No, I just wanted to say, I mean, from a creative perspective, what I would say is that AI, certainly what it's going to do is maybe make the teams more efficient, right? So maybe not, we always need a human intervention, but still, I think we are going to be more efficient by leveraging AI. So a couple of examples from a credit risk management perspective or clear use cases that we are seeing in the market for our customers is, for example, managing when you're trying to review the creditworthiness of a counterparty, right? You receive there is no information publicly available, so you have to get your NDA signed and you get your PDFs with the financial statements. So it was a really painful job of an analyst typing every single financial statement for multiple years, right? So now with OCR technology, we can just get everything in a financial format, consume it, and use it for scoring purposes. Another one is, for example, when you create or an analyst have to review a counterparty, right? Basically, you need for writing up the rationale of why the review is going like that. So basically nowadays it's also possible by leveraging AI, automatically get some insights in the analysis and the rationale of the credit worthiness of the counterparty just by leveraging AI. So I think it's coming in, certainly very good, and hopefully we're going to be more efficient.
Thank you. I think we have time for two more audience questions.
Is it working? Yeah. I love provoking in that type of situation, so I'll try my best. I really love the discussion, really insightful from everyone. But reality check a bit. All the companies here are really very good examples of this partnership, interoperability. I mean, the reason also you're on the summit is obviously showing that you want to cooperate. I will not name the companies, but we all know a few players in the field that are not that open and cooperative, and they don't believe in interoperability and partnership, and they do business differently. Without naming them, it's not about now putting somebody under the bus, but how do you deal with that type of situation? Where do you see your responsibility? What could we do something about it? I mean, how do you see the situation? I know that it's a bit of a tricky question, so
Well, let me start.
I would appreciate honesty. Yeah?
No, it's fine. It's totally fair, right? I guess basically I'm going to be quick as well. I think that they are basically just blocking themselves. I think at some point they're going to death, right? Because actually this lack of collaboration with industry, with the market and so on, is going to be painful for them, right? And it's going to be, so what I think is maybe when in 5 years, something like that, we're going to see that these guys, this sort of interactions and a way of making business, they're going to block them from it's actually happening with some tenders on some RFPs that we received, right? Happy customers, they just say, okay, we don't want these guys involved, right? So at some point, I think it's going to become more general, and it's going to be a impression. That's what I think.
I think our responsibility is to replace them, right? And basically it. There's nothing else to it, right? Essentially, it happens automatically, right? Because if you behave that way, you lose out. As Fran just said, right? You know, you get the RFPs that says everything but as a vendor, that helps, of course, right? So I think it comes automatically that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will police itself quite straightforwardly. People that block will sort of almost suffer the consequences for it long term. One thing I will say though is it is important, you know, with interoperability that you know sort of policies and standardized industry standards are met. You know, the two sides have to maintain exactly the same standards. But yeah, people that are out there deliberately, purposely blocking, that's just short-term thinking, and I don't think it will last very long.
I think you innovate around it. You extract the functionality and capabilities that need to be more dynamic, right? That forms an ecosystem around what will eventually become, in my opinion, a booking system. And a booking system is something that you rely on to look at every day. It's static. It doesn't change very often. It ages out over time, right? I've worked with so many organizations that have databases of record that are 30, 40 years old and they still work. But that's what they've become. They've become databases. So I think innovation and working with partners that kind of create overlay layers and extract the important analytics that respond to the more dynamic parts of the market that need that more frequent analysis and that interoperability, that's what's happening right now. And that's how we're working with partners like that. Should they innovate and change? We're open, right? But if they don't, I think innovation goes around that and creates this ecosystem of layers that, frankly, in a microservices architecture that's cloud native, is going to win at the end of the day.
Alex, it's provocative, and I think at the end of the day, you don't compete with them, right? Directly. So, I mean, they have the right to do what they believe is right to do. And then you work around through the customer. The customer will choose, right? At the end of the day, you offer what you offer, right? You propose what you propose, and then there are going to be customers who will stick with them because of some reasons, and there are going to be customers who are more appealing to the new ecosystem thinking. So you don't have a direct challenge with them. You don't need to be bothered by them, right? So replacing or not, which is, I agree, it's a nice way and provocative, very smart way to answer it, but you actually don't have a challenge with them because I mean, it's a big world. There is a place for everyone, and you are actually competing in the mind of the customer. So if you're doing the things right, you just win the competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2 points. I think it's just your classic battle between incumbent and disruptors, and that's kind of the challenge that you face. An incumbent will do everything they can to be in a more protectionist side, and then the disruptors there to, you know, to break the mold and change that. But also, to be honest, the attitude of just blocking things and protectionism it's not just exclusive to like, us or someone trying to block us. It's actually an attitude that will be in everything that they do. And, all these companies will have their own partners and things that they deal with. And I think, like you said, if you don't innovate and the market moves around you, the people they work with now will also start to seek other solutions. So it'll just become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, you innovate or you die. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Right, last question.
I guess, can you hear me?
Yep.
Playing devil's advocate comes with the name, but we've been talking a lot about interoperability, and I am a huge supporter of this. But as in every game or every market, there are always winners and losers. So if we get to achieve the desired state of interoperability, who wins and who loses? Do you think that there is a risk for small players to become heavily dependent on bigger companies?
I would actually argue the optimal solution is a win-win. I don't think it's a zero-sum game anymore. The market is really big, and that's the reason why probably all these companies are here today, because it isn't a zero-sum game. The market's big enough. We all have our place, and clients essentially want to have the best in class in each of those specialisms. So I don't really see. Sometimes there's overlap here and there, and that's fine. But I think as long as there's healthy competition, there's healthy innovation, there's healthy partnerships. So I'd probably say there isn't a winner and a loser. I'd probably say it should be a winner and a winner.
And what about the small companies?
Well,
That
small
cannot
companies
achieve that interoperability, or don't have the budget or the resources.
But like any company that's just disrupting, like every company here started off as small, right? You have to come in with a USP, you innovate, you challenge who's there at the moment. And then when you add some value into the market, people do want to work with you and you'll achieve some interoperability. And then you grow, and then that competition pushes the next person. I think the issue you're talking about blocking is that competition's there, but then there's no need to innovate, and that just blocks it. And I think that's when you get the zero-sum game.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, I agree with Raj, so no need to repeat. What I would say that if I have to find someone who will lose, is I just revert to the previous question. The one who doesn't adapt are the one that probably are going to suffer some losses. But I agree, it's not a zero-sum game, and there is a way of win-win for everyone. So, yeah.
So I think those who focus on the customer and create value for the customer and the connections they make and who they interoperate with and the solutions they provide, they're ultimately going to be the winners who prevail. When I step back and I look at the structure of energy analytics and energy technology, there are very few scale partners, right? There's a handful of companies that are worth more than 5, 10, 20 billion. If you look at financial services, you've got 5 or 6 players, all of who are worth more than 80 billion or more. There's been massive consolidation in fintech, but there hasn't been as much consolidation in energy tech. And the reason for that has been each asset class has individually been a silo, right, for the last 30 years. I think a lot about what we talked about here today is that cannot persist, right? With the electrification of everything, we cannot exist in silos. So winners will be the companies that learn how to focus on the customer and give them the transparency to adapt to a much more dynamic world that's changing faster than ever, that is multi-commodity, and is one that is digitally driven. So that's who's going to win. And I don't think size matters. I think focusing on the customer does.
Thank you. Got one more?
No, I think
Closing statements? No?
I think we're okay. Just to summarize.
I knew you were going to do that.
No, yes. Following that, I guess the main winner is going to be customer, right? And the value we bring to customer, and then after customer, happy customer, then we will go there. We will go after them. So that's pretty much.
I grew up in Denmark. And in Denmark, when I grew up, there was one beer. You could only get Carlsberg. It's the only beer you can get. And it's kind of a boring beer, right? What then happened was competition came in, and now there's like 500-600 breweries again, right? So you have these cycles of going into monopolies and going out again, and going in and out again. And that's the innovation you're talking about, right? That's the same thing that's happening here, right? At least I think it is. And at the end of the day, as Franda said, the same with the beer. I'm bringing up beer now because that's where we're going, I hope.
Can tell.
Then, that's what's going to happen. The consumer, in the end, the customer will win. You have a more variety, more solutions you can choose from to get to what you need for your taste and for your business.
Rob,
Yeah, I'll be super quick. Yeah, I agree that the people that look after their customers and genuinely anticipate customer need will probably ultimately be the winners. But going back to the smaller ones, I think what you may find is a string of companies that just do slightly some different things, but very, very well. And I think even if you are offering you know, maybe quite a niche service, but you are very, very good at that, I don't think whether you're big or small should make any difference.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you much to all our panelists. Big round of applause. Thank you to you as an audience, very appreciative audience, and also all our speakers that we had today and yesterday. A quick outlook on the rest of the program.